He sat in the defendant's chair, hands folded, eyes fixed on the floor, a statue of calm in a storm of corruption. They thought he was just another drifter, another statistic they could chew up and spit out. Officer Bradley Cogan, a man who wore his badge like a crown, decided to make a point. He walked past, sneered, and delivered a vicious, unprovoked kick to the man's ribs right in the middle of the courtroom. But Cogan didn't know who he was kicking. He didn't know that the drifter was Commander Isaiah Reynolds, a decorated Navy SEAL with a skill set that makes nightmares look like daydreams. What happened in the next 3 seconds didn't just break a bone, it broke the entire system. You are about to witness the most satisfying instant karma in legal history. The air in the chaotic vastness of Courtroom 4B smelled of floor wax, stale coffee, and quiet desperation. It was a humid Tuesday in early August in the sweltering heat of Macon, Georgia. The air conditioning rattled violently in the vents above, doing little to cool the tempers flaring below. Judge Harrison Thorne sat high on the bench, looking bored. He was a man who had long ago traded his passion for justice for the comfort of a routine. He adjusted his glasses, flipping through the docket with the speed of a man who had a tea time at 3 p.m. To him, the people paraded in front of his bench weren't really people. They were file numbers, processing fees, and conviction rates. Docket number 44B, the bailiff droned, his voice monotone. State versus Isaiah Reynolds, charges, resisting arrest, disorderly conduct, and obstruction of justice. A tall, broad-shouldered black man stood up from the defense table. Isaiah Reynolds moved with a slow, deliberate grace that most people missed. He wasn't frantic like the drug dealers who preceded him, nor was he sullen like the petty thieves. He wore a simple gray t-shirt and dark jeans. His head was shaved, and his beard was neatly trimmed, flecked with gray that hinted he was older than his smooth skin suggested. He didn't look at the gallery. He didn't look at the judge. He looked straight ahead at the great seal of the state of Georgia hanging on the back wall. Sitting a few feet away, leaning back in a chair that creaked under his weight, was Sergeant Bradley Cogan. Cogan was a legend in the Macon precinct, but for all the wrong reasons. He was built like a vending machine, square, heavy, and hard. His uniform was tight across his chest, the fabric straining against muscles built in the gym, but fueled by something uglier. He had a reputation for cleaning up the streets, a euphemism that, in his case, meant harassing anyone who didn't immediately bow to his authority. He chewed gum with an open mouth, a subtle sign of disrespect to the court that Judge Thorne conveniently ignored. "Mr. Reynolds," Judge Thorne sighed, not looking up. "You are appearing today pro se. You don't have a lawyer?" "No, Your Honor," Isaiah said. His voice was a deep baritone, steady and devoid of fear. "I will represent myself." Cogan snorted loud enough for the back row to hear. He leaned over to the rookie officer sitting next to him, Officer Timothy Halloway. "Hear that, Timmy? He's gonna represent himself, a jailhouse lawyer. This is gonna be a 5-minute roast." The incident that brought them here was trivial, a broken tail light, a stop that should have taken 10 minutes. But when Cogan had pulled Isaiah over 3 nights ago, he didn't like Isaiah's silence. He didn't like the way Isaiah kept his hands on the wheel, perfectly compliant, but utterly unimpressed. Cogan wanted fear. When he didn't get it, he escalated. He demanded a search. Isaiah refused, citing the Fourth Amendment. Cogan dragged him out of the car. Isaiah didn't fight back. He just went limp. Passive resistance, Cogan called it in the report. But then Cogan added the resisting charge to justify the bruises he'd left on Isaiah's arms. Now, in the courtroom, the dynamic was predatory. "State your case, Sergeant," the judge waved a hand. Cogan stood up, hitching his belt. He walked to the center of the floor, commanding the space. He loved this part. The storytelling. "Your Honor," Cogan began, his voice booming with practiced authority. "The defendant was stopped on I-75 for a non-functional taillight. Upon approach, I detected the odor of narcotics." Isaiah's eyes narrowed slightly. There were no narcotics. There never were. I asked the suspect to exit the vehicle, Cogan continued, pacing back and forth, making eye contact with the stenographer, playing to the crowd. He became belligerent. He squared up to me in a combat stance. I feared for my safety and the safety of the public. I had to use necessary force to subdue him. Liar, a woman whispered from the back. It was Sarah, a local legal aid intern who had been watching Cogan's cases for months. She knew the pattern, but she also knew nobody ever beat Cogan. He was the golden boy of the department, protected by the fraternal order and a DA who needed police cooperation to win re-election. Mr. Reynolds? The judge looked at Isaiah. Your response? Isaiah stood. He didn't pace. He didn't wave his arms. Your Honor, there is dash cam footage. I requested it 3 days ago. It has not been provided. Technical glitch, Cogan interrupted, smirking. Camera was on the fritz. Happens? Convenient, Isaiah said calmly. Watch your tone, boy, Cogan snapped. The courtroom went deadly silent. The racial epithet hung in the air, heavy and toxic. Judge Thorne cleared his throat, looking uncomfortable but unwilling to reprimand his star officer. Sergeant Cogan, let's keep it professional. Mr. Reynolds, without the footage, it's your word against a decorated officer's. Do you have anything else? I have the truth, Isaiah said. Cogan laughed. It was a cold, barking sound. The truth? The truth is you're lucky I didn't break your jaw on the side of that road. Cogan began to walk back to his seat. His path took him directly past the defense table where Isaiah stood. The aisle was wide enough for 2 men, but Cogan wanted to assert dominance. He veered close, invading Isaiah's personal space. Isaiah didn't flinch. He remained at attention, eyes forward. It was that lack of reaction, that absolute, stoic refusal to be intimidated, that snapped something inside Cogan. It was an insult to his ego. He couldn't let this drifter stand there looking like a soldier when he was just a suspect. As Cogan passed, he pretended to stumble. He shouted, "Watch it!" and lashed out with his right leg. It was a vicious, calculated stomp aimed directly at the side of Isaiah's knee. A joint breaker, a move designed to cripple someone for life, masked as a clumsy accident. The sound of the boot connecting wasn't the crack of bone Cogan expected. It was a dull thud against muscle. Cogan smirked, waiting for the scream, waiting for the man to crumble to the floor, clutching his leg. But Isaiah Reynolds didn't crumble. He didn't even sway. The courtroom froze. Time seemed to warp in courtroom 4B. For the spectators, the moment was a blur. 1 second, Sergeant Cogan was stomping on the defendant. The next, the world turned upside down. For Isaiah Reynolds, time slowed down to a tactical crawl. His training, drilled into him over 20 years of service in the most hostile environments on Earth, from the peaks of the Hindu Kush to the humid deltas of Nigeria, took over. The conscious mind turned off. The reptile brain, refined by the US Navy, engaged. Threat detected. Sector 4, low-line assault. Ineffective. Isaiah had shifted his weight milliseconds before Cogan's boot connected. Instead of the knee joint, Cogan hit the dense muscle of the thigh, tensed to absorb the impact. It hurt, but pain was just information to Isaiah. Cogan, realizing his victim hadn't fallen, looked down in genuine confusion. He pulled his leg back for a second strike, his face twisting into a mask of rage. "You tripped me! You son of a—" He raised his boot again. That was his mistake. Isaiah didn't punch. He didn't flail. He moved with the terrifying economy of a man who knows exactly how to dismantle the human body. As Cogan's foot left the ground, Isaiah pivoted on his left heel. His right hand shot out, not in a fist, but open-palmed. He caught Cogan's ankle in mid-air. It looked effortless, like a father catching a tossed ball. "That's enough," Isaiah said. His voice wasn't a shout. It was a command. Cogan tried to yank his leg back, but Isaiah's grip was like a steel vice. Panic flared in the cop's eyes. He had never felt strength like this. He lunged forward, trying to throw a punch to free himself. Isaiah sidestepped the clumsy haymaker. He didn't let go of the ankle. Instead, he rotated his hips and torqued Cogan's leg inward while sweeping the officer's standing leg with his own foot. Leverage, gravity, impact. Cogan spun in the air, completely horizontal for a split second, before slamming into the linoleum floor face first. The sound was sickening. A heavy, meaty slap, followed by the clatter of his duty belt, handcuffs, and baton skittering across the tiles. The entire courtroom gasped in unison. Cogan scrambled to his knees, blood dripping from his nose. He was humiliated. He reached for his holster. "I'll kill you!" he screamed, his hand fumbling for the retention strap of his Glock 17. The bailiff, a heavy-set man named Miller, was too slow to react. The rookie, Holloway, was frozen in shock. But Isaiah wasn't. Seeing the reach for the weapon, the rules of engagement shifted from self-defense to neutralization of lethal threat. Isaiah closed the distance in one step. He didn't strike Cogan. He dismantled his ability to fight. He stepped onto Cogan's right calf, pinning him to the floor, and grabbed the officer's wrist, the one reaching for the gun. With a precise twist, he applied a wrist lock known as a kotegaishi. Cogan screamed as the tendons in his wrist threatened to snap. His hand flew open, useless. "Do not reach for that weapon," Isaiah said, calmly looking down at the thrashing officer. "Stay down! Bailiff, shoot him! Shoot him now!" Judge Thorne was standing on his desk, banging his gavel so hard the head flew off. "He's assaulting an officer!" Bailiff Miller finally unholstered his taser. "Get on the ground, now!" Isaiah didn't let go of Cogan, who was now weeping in pain and rage on the floor. Isaiah looked at the bailiff. He slowly released Cogan's wrist, raised his hands in the air, and knelt. "I am complying," Isaiah said clearly. The officer attempted to use lethal force after an unprovoked physical assault on a defendant. "I neutralized the threat." "Shut up!" Cogan spat, rolling over and clutching his wrist. "He attacked me. He's crazy. Tase him." Miller hesitated. He had seen the kick. Everyone had. He had seen Cogan initiate it. And he had seen this drifter take down the department's toughest brawler in less than 3 seconds without throwing a single punch. "Cuff him!" Judge Thorne yelled, his face purple. "Contempt, assault, attempted murder of a police officer. I want him under the jail." Officer Holloway and Bailiff Miller rushed Isaiah. They slammed him into the floor, knees in his back. They were rougher than necessary, fueled by the adrenaline and the sight of their fallen brother. Isaiah didn't resist. He let them cuff him. As his cheek was pressed against the cold floor, he locked eyes with Sarah, the legal intern in the back row. She was filming with her phone, her hands shaking. "Did you get it?" Isaiah mouthed. She nodded, pale as a ghost. Cogan was helped to his feet by a clerk. He wiped the blood from his nose and limped over to where Isaiah lay pinned. Cogan's ego was shattered, and in its place was a cold, murderous desire for revenge. He leaned down, whispering so only Isaiah could hear. "You're dead. You hear me? You don't touch a cop in my town. You're never seeing the sun again." Isaiah looked up from the floor. His expression hadn't changed. It was the look of a man who had stared down warlords and terrorists. "Sergeant," Isaiah whispered back, "you have no idea what you just kicked." The doors to the courtroom burst open. 3 sheriff's deputies ran in to reinforce the arrest. They dragged Isaiah out the side door, his feet barely touching the ground. Judge Thorne sat back down, straightening his robes, trying to regain his dignity. "Court is adjourned. Clear the room, and someone wipe up that blood." He looked at the stenographer. "Strike the defendant's comments from the record. The official record will state he attacked the officer unprovoked." The stenographer hesitated. "Do it," Thorne hissed. She typed, "Defendant initiated assault." But the judge, Cogan, and the entire corrupt system of Macon had a problem. They thought they had buried the evidence. They thought they had silenced the witness. They didn't know that Sarah, the intern, had already hit upload. And they certainly didn't know that Isaiah Reynolds wasn't just a retired SEAL. He was currently an active operational consultant for the Department of Defense, and he had a scheduled check-in with his commanding officer in Washington, D.C. in exactly 2 hours. When Isaiah "Ice" Reynolds missed a check-in, the Navy didn't send a text message. They sent a search party, and God help anyone who stood in their way. The holding cell in the basement of the Macon County Courthouse was a concrete box designed to break the human spirit. It smelled of mildew, unwashed bodies, and the metallic tang of old rust. There were no windows, only a flickering fluorescent bulb caged in wire mesh that buzzed incessantly, like an angry hornet trapped in a jar. Isaiah Reynolds sat on the thin metal bench bolted to the wall. He had been stripped of his belt, shoelaces, and the dignity the court system thought it could take from him. His wrists were bruised from the handcuffs, and there was a dull ache in his shoulder where the deputies had slammed him into the door frame on the way down. But Isaiah wasn't broken. He was calculating. He sat in the lotus position, eyes closed, regulating his breathing. In for 4, hold for 4, out for 4, hold for 4, box breathing. It was the same technique he had used while waiting in a submerged submersible off the coast of North Korea and while hiding in a spider hole in the Afghan mountains. This cell was luxury compared to those places. He checked his internal clock. It was 2:15 p.m. His check-in with his commanding officer, Admiral Sterling, was scheduled for 2 p.m. sharp. He had missed it. By now, a red light was flashing on a secure server in the Pentagon. By 2:30 p.m., a failure to report status would be logged. By 3 p.m., his GPS transponder, implanted subcutaneously in his left shoulder during his last operation, would be pinged. He just had to wait. Upstairs, in the plush, mahogany-paneled chambers of Judge Harrison Thorne, the atmosphere was far less calm. Judge Thorne poured himself a generous measure of scotch, his hand shaking slightly. Sergeant Bradley Cogan paced the room, an ice pack pressed to his swelling nose. His wrist was wrapped in an ace bandage, throbbing with a pulse of its own. "You have to bury him, Harry," Cogan growled, his voice nasally from the injury. "I want him gone. I want him in general pop at the state pen by Friday. I want him to disappear." Thorne took a gulp of the scotch. "Bradley, you kicked him, in open court, with witnesses." "Nobody saw nothing." Cogan slammed his good hand on the desk. "The bailiff knows the score. Holloway will write what I tell him to write. And the stenographer? She's a single mom. She needs this job. She's not going to contradict the official record." "What about the girl?" Thorne asked, wiping sweat from his forehead. "The legal aid intern. Sarah something. I saw her holding her phone up." Cogan froze. The rage in his eyes cooled into something sharper, deadlier. "She was filming?" "I don't know. Maybe." Cogan grabbed his radio from his belt. "Holloway, get a unit to the legal aid office. Pick up Sarah Jenkins. Bring her in for questioning. Outstanding warrants, suspicion of obstruction. I don't care, just find something. And get her phone." Sarah Jenkins was already 3 miles away, sitting in the back corner of a dusty internet cafe that smelled of burnt popcorn. Her hands were trembling so hard she could barely navigate the trackpad of her laptop. She knew she shouldn't have run. Running made you look guilty. But after seeing what Cogan tried to do to that man, and what that man did back, she knew the rules of the game had changed. This wasn't a legal battle anymore. It was a war. She had the video file open on her screen. It was shaky, but the audio was crystal clear. Crack. The sound of the boot. Thud. The sound of Cogan hitting the floor. "You have no idea what you just kicked." She took a deep breath. She logged into a burner email account she used for anonymous tips. She attached the file. In the recipient line, she didn't put the local news. The local news was owned by a conglomerate that played golf with the mayor. She didn't put the state police. They protected their own. She typed in the email address for the Justice Project, a national watchdog group based in New York with millions of followers, and copied a specific investigative journalist named Marcus Reed at the Washington Post, known for exposing police corruption. Subject: police brutality in Macon courtroom, raw footage. She hit send. The progress bar crawled across the screen. 10%, 40%, 75%. The door of the internet cafe chimed. Sarah looked up. 2 uniformed officers walked in, scanning the room. It wasn't Kogan, but she recognized them. 90%. She lowered the lid of her laptop halfway, trying to make herself small. 99%. Sent. She slammed the laptop shut, shoved it into a tote bag, and stood up, heading for the back exit. "Hey, you!" one of the officers shouted. Sarah didn't look back. She bolted through the kitchen, past a startled cook, and out into the alleyway. She could hear the heavy boots pounding behind her. She knew the streets of Macon better than they did. She ducked under a broken fence, scrambled through a neighbor's yard, and disappeared into the humid afternoon haze. Back in the cell, the metal door groaned open. Kogan stood there, framed by the light from the hallway. He wasn't wearing his duty belt anymore, but he held a heavy, rubber-wrapped baton in his left hand. He signaled the guard to leave. The heavy door clanged shut, locking them in together. Isaiah opened his eyes. He didn't stand up. He remained in the lotus position on the bench, looking at Kogan with an unnerving mixture of pity and boredom. "You think you're tough," Kogan whispered, stepping closer. The camera in the corner of the cell had been conveniently covered with a piece of duct tape. "You think some fancy karate move makes you a man?" "I think you are in a great deal of pain, Sergeant," Isaiah said softly, "and you are looking for a way to transfer that pain to me. It won't work." Kogan laughed, a wet, gurgling sound. "Oh, it'll work. See, down here, there are no witnesses. Down here, you fell off the bench. You banged your head against the wall in a psychotic episode." Kogan raised the baton. "Bradley Kogan," Isaiah said, his voice dropping an octave. "Service number 8944 Alpha. Divorced twice. Gambling debt of $42,000. You take kickbacks from the towing company on 4th Street. Kogan froze, the baton hovering in midair. "How do you know that?" "I observe," Isaiah said. "I listen. You have a tell, Sergeant. When you lie, you touch your belt buckle. You've been touching it since you walked in." "Shut up!" Kogan swung the baton. It was a clumsy, angry swing. Isaiah caught the weapon mid-swing with his left hand, absorbing the impact in his palm. He didn't wrench it away this time. He just held it there, freezing Kogan in place. "If you strike me again," Isaiah said, locking eyes with the terrified bully, "I will not simply restrain you. I will disassemble you. And this time, I won't stop at the wrist." For the first time in his life, Bradley Kogan looked into the eyes of a man and saw absolutely no fear. Only a deep, dark abyss that promised violence on a scale he couldn't comprehend. Kogan pulled the baton back, his breathing ragged. He backed away, fumbling for the door handle. "You're a dead man," Kogan stammered, his voice cracking. "You hear me? Dead." He fled the cell, slamming the door behind him. Isaiah exhaled slowly. He checked the time in his head, set 2:45 p.m. Almost time. By 4 p.m., the video had been viewed 300,000 times. By 5 p.m., it was trending #1 on Twitter under the hashtag #MaconJustice. The raw footage was undeniable. The arrogance of the kick, the fluidity of the countermove, the sheer corruption of the judge screaming to arrest the victim. Internet sleuths had already identified Kogan. His home address, his disciplinary record, which was surprisingly hard to find, suggesting a cover-up, and photos of him at a BBQ with the district attorney were circulating on Reddit. In the district attorney's office, Beatrice Geller was having a stroke. "Who is this guy?" she screamed at her assistant, throwing a tablet across her desk. "Who is Isaiah Reynolds? I want a background check deeper than the Marianas Trench. I want to know what kindergarten he went to." "We ran him through NCIC, ma'am," the assistant stuttered. "It came back classified." "Classified? What do you mean classified? He's a drifter with a broken taillight." "No, ma'am. The file is locked. It says Department of Defense, Level 5 clearance required. It directed us to call a number at the Pentagon." Beatrice Geller felt a cold knot of dread form in her stomach. She had been the DA for 12 years. She knew how to fix a DUI for a senator's son. She knew how to bury evidence for the police union. But level 5 clearance was a language she didn't speak. Get Judge Thorne on the phone. Tell him to deny bail. If the feds are involved, we need to keep him in custody until we can figure out a leverage angle. We charge him with domestic terrorism if we have to. Just keep him in that cell. Meanwhile, at the Macon police precinct, the phone lines were melting. Citizens from as far away as London and Tokyo were calling the desk sergeant, demanding answers. Protesters were beginning to gather on the front steps, holding signs that read, "We saw the kick," and "Free Isaiah." Officer Holloway, the rookie, was manning the front desk, looking pale. He picked up line 4. "Macon Police, please hold." "I will not hold," a crisp, authoritative voice said on the other end. "This is Captain Elias Sterling, Office of the Judge Advocate General, United States Navy. I am speaking to the watch commander." Holloway swallowed hard. The sergeant is indisposed right now. Can I take a message?" "This is not a message, son. This is a notification. You are holding a Tier 1 asset of the United States government. You have violated Article 9 of the Uniform Code of Military Justice by detaining active duty personnel without notifying his command." "Active duty?" Holloway looked at the file on the desk. "No, sir, he's unemployed. He said he does construction." "He builds things, yes," Sterling said, his voice dripping with icy sarcasm. "And he tears things down. You have exactly 30 minutes to release Commander Reynolds to my custody. If he has a single scratch on him that wasn't there yesterday, I will bring the full weight of the federal government down on your little clubhouse. Do you understand?" "I have to call the chief." "You do that. Tell him the Navy is coming, and tell him to put on his dress uniform. He's going to need it for the court-martial." The line went dead. Inside the cell, the door opened again. This time, it wasn't Cogan. It was 2 large men in orange jumpsuits, actual inmates. The guards had moved Isaiah. Cogan, realizing he couldn't beat Isaiah himself, had pulled strings to have Isaiah transferred to the general holding tank, a large room filled with 20 of the county's worst offenders on a Friday night. The strategy was simple: jailhouse justice. Let the animals take care of the problem. Isaiah stepped into the crowded tank. The smell was overpowering: urine, sweat, and aggression. The door slammed shut behind him. The chatter in the room died down. 20 pairs of eyes fixed on the new guy. He was dressed in the suicide smock they had forced him into, stripping him of his regular clothes to humiliate him. A massive man with tattoos covering his face stood up from a bench in the corner. His name was Big T, a local gang enforcer awaiting trial for aggravated assault. But only if you have the courage to write the truth. Keep writing. IR. She unwrapped the object. It was a challenge coin. On one side was the Navy SEAL trident. On the other, the scales of justice. Sarah gripped the coin tight. She wasn't just an intern anymore. She was a guardian, the ghost in the machine. 3,000 miles away, the night was pitch black. The wind howled across the deck of the USS Mako, an amphibious assault ship stationed off the coast of a conflict zone that wouldn't make the news for another week. The ocean sprayed mist over the flight deck, where a team of operators was gearing up. Commander Isaiah Reynolds checked his equipment. Night vision goggles, check. Suppressor, check. The weight of the gear was familiar, comforting. "Hey, Ice." Isaiah turned. It was his second in command, a younger SEAL named Miller, no relation to the bailiff. Miller was holding a tablet. "You see the news, boss? They gave that cop 15 years. The judge got 4. Isaiah paused. He looked out at the dark horizon, where the sea met the sky. He thought about the hot courtroom in Georgia. He thought about the pain in his knee that still flared up when it rained. He thought about the look in Cogan's eyes, not when he was kicking, but when he realized he had lost. Justice is a slow grinder, Isaiah said quietly. Still, Miller grinned, must feel good, knowing you took down a whole corrupt department with one block. Isaiah adjusted his gloves. It wasn't the block that took them down, Miller. It was the arrogance. They thought they were untouchable. That's always the fatal error. The rotors of the Black Hawk began to spin, the whine of the engine rising to a scream. "We have a green light," the pilot's voice crackled over the comms. Isaiah Reynolds, the man who had been a drifter, a victim, and a ghost, stepped towards the helicopter. He wasn't thinking about Kogan anymore. Kogan was the past. The mission was the future. "Let's go to work," Isaiah said. He boarded the bird, disappearing into the darkness to do what he did best, protect those who couldn't protect themselves, whether they knew his name or not. In Macon, the sun was just rising over a town that was a little bit safer, a little bit cleaner, and a whole lot wiser. They had learned the hard way that you can never judge a book by its cover, and you certainly shouldn't kick it, because sometimes the book kicks back, and that, ladies and gentlemen, is the story of how a corrupt system crumbled because one bully picked on the wrong drifter. It's a powerful reminder that true strength isn't about being the loudest person in the room or having the biggest badge. True strength is about composure, truth, and the courage to stand your ground when the world tries to knock you down. Isaiah Reynolds didn't just break a hold, he broke a cycle of abuse. If you enjoyed this story of instant karma and justice served cold, please smash that like button. It really helps the channel grow. Don't forget to subscribe and hit the notification bell so you never miss a story. Have you ever seen a bully get instant karma in real life? Tell me your story in the comments below. I read every single one. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Stay safe.